Okay, this is a pretty simple game, right? Um, it is the oldest continuously played North American sport. This was invented by Native Americans, part of the Haudenosaunee Nation up in upstate New York. So the Iroquois, the Mohawk, the Huron, the Onondaga, the Seneca, those guys. But it's also played all the way down to Florida, along the East Coast and kind of up into Canada. Anybody been to Ball Ground, Georgia? It is Ball Ground, Georgia, because that is where the Cherokee used to play lacrosse. The Iroquois term, when it's translated into English, is bumping hips. It's also called little brother of war. And there used to be, pretty much the only rule was don't kill anybody. The field could be 2 miles long. There would be hundreds of people playing at the same time. Games could go on for days. The idea was that this was a ritual that was meant to bring people together to heal divisions. It's often called the medicine game, but it goes way back. In the 1800s, it was sort of co-opted by a Canadian beer company, and they wrote down the rules and started putting teams together and having people travel around. These are the traditional sticks. Even when I was playing in the 80s, you had the guy pull up in the van who would fix your stick and restring wooden sticks. And as you can see, you kind of wear gloves but no helmets. I'm very glad that no longer referees wear wool suits and little jaunty caps. So that's good. You can see the equipment changing, right? For a long time, this was pretty much just, sort of elite prep schools and colleges playing this on the East Coast, Baltimore, New York, Boston. That was kind of the big areas, Long Island. But again, it has always been played by Native peoples. However, in the 1890s, 1900s, they made it illegal for Native Americans to play because they were, quote, too good. So I always find it interesting when, that whole thing with Ireland and the World Games, you should follow that. This is when I started playing. I played at Bates up in Maine, Division III school. That's when the plastic heads really started to come in, and the metal shafts, that you can see the technology changing until we get to where we are today, where these are really fast athletes who are pretty big kids. I mean, it used to be when I played, everybody was 150 pounds with wearing wet sweatpants. And now you're looking at guys that are 6'2", 230 that run like deer. And that the sticks are not as heavy. If you are playing with one of these bad boys, you can pretty much get one slap check off. If you're playing with one of these things, you can rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat all you want. Also, you'll notice the sticks started going like this and getting narrower and narrower and narrower. That makes the ball harder to dislodge. So a lot of the change in the rules is in response to the change in technology. Knowing the why the rule is there is more important, I think, than actually completely knowing the rule. If you understand the intent of the rule, you're going to be a better official. The rules, to a great extent, have not changed a lot. I like Jimmy Carbonell's description of lacrosse as it is a gentleman's sport played by rogues. This is a game where it can be pretty rough and tumble, but the idea is to reward skill, not brute violence. This is a skilled game that allows contact. It is not a violent game that allows skill, okay? Here you can see the change in technology as we get the narrower heads. It really starts to change right in there. And so again, making it easier to dislodge the ball. This is why we do stick checks, okay? Basic summary of lacrosse. It is 2 teams of 10. You have to have 2 goalkeepers, and I need everybody to remember this. If you don't have a goalkeeper, you're not playing the game. Right? You can't say, well, Billy's stuck on the bridge with his mom in traffic, so we're going to put this kid with 8 shirts on and we're going to shove a glove down his pants and we're going to give him a stick and everything's going to be okay, right? If you do not have a certified, legally equipped goalkeeper for each team, we're not playing. The field is 110 by 53 and a third, 260. Anybody know what 53 and a third is? What field is 53 and a third feet wide? Or I guess that would be yards. This is the class interaction part. Somebody can unmute. What is 53 and a third yards wide?
Football.
Football, right? When given the choice, we are using football lines, okay? Soccer is often 63, and I don't get paid to run those extra 3 yards, so we ain't using them soccer lines, okay? So we're going 53. Now, it can be anywhere in between 53 and a third to 60, right? So there's a lot of running involved. For those of you guys who have done football, if you're used to 3 yards in a cloud of dust, this is not the sport for you, okay? The average amount I run, and I keep it on my Fitbit, is between 3.25 and 4.5 miles a game, okay? And I'm not talking like the TV jog. I'm talking, oh God, we're all gonna die of bears chasing me sort of running. So if you have not taken up jogging during the pandemic, this is probably a good time to take up jogging. The game begins with a face-off, and we'll deal with face-offs in our next class. We're going to deal with face-offs and penalties and goals in our next class. But basically, it's two guys fighting it out for the ball. It's essentially the lacrosse equivalent of a jump ball in basketball. The ball is being played by being carried, thrown, or batted with the cross, kicked or rolled in any direction. So you can kick the ball in the goal. You can bat the ball in the goal. You can headbutt the ball in the goal. You can do any of those things. You can have no more than 6 offensive players on your side of the field, your offensive side, and no more than 7 defensive players. So offsides comes into play. There is a lot of counting that happens, and we will spend a fair amount of time talking about that. You can check with your body or the cross. Goal counts as 1. Most goals win, right? Pretty simple. By the way, if anybody has any questions, you can raise your hand. You can just unmute and shout out, and I'll get to you. I understand I'm essentially putting a fire hose to your brain right now and throwing a lot of information at you. So I understand that. I will be available for questions at any point in time. I'm going to give you my cell phone number and email number and all that kind of stuff. So this is what your rule book is going to look like. I think I've gotten rule books to half of you. I'm waiting for my second order to come in, and I'll be popping those in the mail or dropping them off at your house this week. So keep an eye out for that. Rule 1 is the game, field, and equipment. Rule 2 is game personnel. Rule 3 is time factors. You have 4 play of the game. 5 is personal and ejection fouls, 6 is technical fouls, and 7 is penalty enforcement, okay? The one you are probably most familiar with is penalties, right? You know what a slash is, you know what a cross check is, you kind of know what a hold is, you kind of know what a push is, but the rubber meets the road when you are able to enforce those penalties. You have to know the order in which you enforce them and how long you can put and what's releasable and what's non-releasable. That's the really important stuff being a referee. And that's going to take you a couple of years in order to figure out. So getting in the rule book is really, really important. There's also the youth rules, right? And we'll talk about that age difference and how we're going to do that. Youth rules are written by US Lacrosse. These rules are written, the high school rules are written by the National Federation of High Schools, the NFHS. And so it's important to understand that there's a couple of different sort of governing bodies that are at play here. Now, when I talk to guys about whether or not they understand a rule, I'm going to want you to actually look the rule up. right? I'm going to want you to get in the rule book and highlight stuff. By the end of the season, your rule book should look like the Dead Sea Scrolls. Pages should be falling out of stuff, right? It should be over highlighted. There should be 1,000 marks up in it. You should have questions like, what the hell does this mean? Call Greg. That's the kind of level that you need to get into this, because it is way easier to figure out one of these crazy situations in your living room with the rule book than it is standing between two benches with everybody screaming at you and 5,000 people telling you you're an idiot. I have done both of those things, and I much prefer sitting at home with the frosty malted beverage, calling somebody and figuring it out. So get in the rule book. That is one of the most important things. And there's a couple of places that I'd really like you to kind of bookmark. And again, this presentation will be available to you, and you can check this out. But each year begins with a point of emphasis. That is not what the referees decide that we should do. It is what the NFHS and the Rules Committee decide that we really need to be paying attention to. So all this sort of conversation about stuff about concussions, that's not the referees deciding that we need to call those fouls. That's the Rules Committee saying, you guys need to call those fouls. Okay. So every year there's going to be a new point of emphasis, and you really need to jump in there and make sure you understand what those are. That's always at the very beginning of your book. Let me go back. Then you're going to have the rules revisions. The 2020, there's not going to be a 2021 rule book. They're sticking with the 2020 rule book. They're not making any changes, okay? But there still are changes. All stick penalties are now 2 minutes, right? Doesn't matter if it's a deep pocket, doesn't matter if it's pinch, doesn't matter if it's too short. And every stick can come back in the game as long as it gets fixed. That's a pretty big rule change. You need to be aware of those things, okay? Goal scored, goal not counted. I'd probably go over this rule about 30 times a year, because you better know when you're taking a goal off the board or what it means to count a goal. Most goals win, right? So we are here to arbitrate the game and make sure it's fair, fun, and safe. That being said, everybody kind of takes that whole winning thing pretty seriously. So we better know what we're counting as a goal and what we're not counting as a goal. So you need to dog ear that little place, and you need to read and read and read and read that rule over and over again. Misapplication of rule, inadvertent whistle or flag, or as I like to say, what do you do when you screw up? And let me tell you, early in your career, that's going to happen a lot. Okay. Not because, you're bad officials. It's part of the growth process. Okay. So you just need to understand, if I blow my whistle and I shouldn't have, I better keep blowing my whistle and kill the play, because I can fix a couple of things. But if you let things go on too long, you can't, right? So this is stuff I review before every game, right? What can I fix? How can I fix it? And hope to God that it doesn't happen, okay? Goal crease privileges and prohibitions. These are the special privileges that a goalie gets, right? If you're crazy enough to be a goalie, you get certain magical privileges. I will say this: anybody who's a referee for football, who does football? How many football guys I got on the call? Anybody? Nobody refs football?
I do.
Okay.
Gabriel.
What would you say is the most difficult thing of being a football official and really figuring out?
Probably trying to get those holding penalties on the inside of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. What about the kicking game?
Kicking game is a nightmare.
Kicking game is an absolute nightmare, right? Whether they can advance, whether it's a muff, where do you spot it? Who can do what, right? The kicking game, the punting game, the free kicks takes years to figure out. Goal crease privileges and play around the crease, minimum 3 years for you to figure out what's happening, right? Minimum 3 years. And that's doing a lot of games, right? So if you're just doing 5 games a year, it's going to take even longer. If you're doing 30 games a year, it's still going to take you 3 years to figure out what's going on around the crease. Okay. And you're not sitting in your living room with a cup of tea and the rule book on your Kindle. You've just run 110 yards in 90-degree heat with a bunch of 18-year-olds chasing you. And then suddenly everybody stops and looks at you to make the call. Okay. So spend a lot of time reading Rule 419 through 21. Okay. Cross specifications, it's actually pretty easy to do once you figure it out. And we've got a couple of great videos on how to do a stick check. We'll talk about that later, but you need to know the dimensions, right? You can write it on a little cheat sheet, just have it on an index card, stick it in your pocket, okay? That's a perfect reference for what you need to do, but you need to know what's an illegal stick and what's not an illegal stick. Sudden victory overtime, I have to say, I totally screwed this up a couple of years ago. Actually, I didn't screw it up. I just didn't have it quite right in my brain. Literally, I've been doing this for 21 years and I teach this multiple times a year. I just got football and lacrosse sort of overlapped in my brain. You can easily get too many rule books overlapped in your brain, but you should know what happens in sudden victory overtime. And then finally, your signals. And I'm gonna tell you this. I don't care if your wife, your children, your neighbors make fun of you. Get in front of a full-length mirror and practice your signals. Because right now, none of you really know what you're doing. And the only way you are going to fake your way through the first year or so is if you look like you know what you're doing, which means your uniform's got to be good and your signals have to be good. So you got to channel your inner Ed Hockley and really, really, really work on this is a hold, right? This is a slash. This is unsportsmanlike conduct. This is a cross check, right? This is a push. You have to make it look like you know what you're doing, because if you don't and your uniform is sloppy and your signals are all like an octopus falling out of a tree, it is like blood in the water, people. They are going to come after you hard because they know you're the weak link on the crew, right? And all of you who have coached know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You're going to get on that guy so that you get one call down the line because his partner feels bad for you. Okay? Yeah, I see all the smiles over here from the adults who have coached, right? Well, you're about to be that guy. So a couple of other things I need you to pay attention as you're going here is shall and must. A team shall have 2 legally equipped goalkeepers. That's not an option. Shall and must is you got to do it, right? You must wear a mouthpiece. You must have gloves and shoulder pads and a helmet and a cross to be a legally equipped player. You don't get a choice there. You will have something. That's automatic. May and should are optional. So you may bat the ball into the goal, but you don't have to. You should have maybe ball retriever kids, right, on the end line, but you don't have to. You could have some things, you can have some things, but they're not required. Be very careful when you come across shall, must, and will in a rule book. That's really required stuff. So get your highlighter, this is where you're like, the sweet, sweet smell of school supplies sort of starts to come out, right? Get that highlighter out and get in that rule book. You should tear that thing to pieces by the end of spring season next year, okay? Got some people popping out here. All right, the mechanics manual, and I'm going to email all that, like most of you have hard copies, or half of you have hard copies of stuff. I'm going to email you electronic copies of this stuff as well. The U.S. Lacrosse Mechanics Manual for 2-man will reference some NCAA stuff, okay? Because there are, private schools in Maryland, and I think that maybe Texas has got some folks who are using NCAA rules. So there may be some references to NCAA rules. We are only talking about federation rules, so be aware of that. In your mechanics manual, you will see a couple of QR codes. You can use your phone to scan those in the mechanics manual. It will take you to really good videos that were done by our very own Gordon Corsetti, who worked for US Lacrosse for a number of years as the head men's official for training. So use those resources. It will be really helpful to you. So let's talk about people on the field, right? You're going to hear midfielder or midi. Those are guys that essentially play offense and defense, right? So if you think hockey, those are the guys that do it all. You have defensemen, also known as long poles. Their lacrosse stick is 6 feet long as opposed to 41 inches long. You've got attackmen. They tend to be the better offensive players, and they tend to hang out just by their opponent's goal. But the key thing here is I don't care what position you're playing. For the most part, I'm really only concerned with do I have a legally equipped goalkeeper, and do I have the right number of players on either side, right? So I don't care if you're a midi or a defenseman or even a goalie. You can go to the offensive end of the field as long as I have the right number of guys over here, the right number of guys over here.
Yes.
Mike?
Yeah.
Somebody got a question?
Yeah.
What do you got? William, what do you got?
About getting paid though.
Yeah.
We should add up all the games and see.
Hey, William. All right, there we go. All right. Head coach, only person I'm worried about, right? He's the one who has to certify that his players, he's the one that I'm going to communicate with. He's the one that has to say yes when I say, are your players legally equipped? All that kind of stuff. He's the one that can call a timeout. Now, let me tell you a little secret. If I'm staring at the play and I hear somebody behind me yell timeout, I'm calling a timeout. Okay, I'm not turning around to make sure that it's the head coach and it's not the assistant coach. The assistant coach asks me a question and is polite about it. And by polite, I mean he's not threatening my mother. That's sort of where my bar is. I'm going to answer his question, okay? So don't get too wrapped up and you're not the head coach and I don't want to talk to you. Like, that's ridiculous. Somebody asks you a question and they're polite about it, you answer the question. But the head coach does have certain responsibilities that we need to be aware of, okay? That basically is the who, okay? Now, for the most part, I'm not really interested in the position, right? I'm interested in, are you on offense or defense? And in the book, if you are on offense, you are referred to as Team A. So if you're reading your rule book and it says Team A, 34 drives to the goal. Team A has the ball. A34 has the ball, okay? And B13 makes illegal contact with them. Team B is always on defense, okay? Now, we do have this thing, clearing and riding. If you are a team that is trying to get the ball from your defensive end to your offensive team, your offensive end, you are referred to as the clearing team. You're trying to clear the ball out. If you are the riding team, you were on offense and you're trying to keep it in your offensive end and prevent it from going over to your defensive end, okay? So that is the what you're doing. That is the role that you're playing. And I'm actually much more interested in that as an official. On the right-hand side, we're really talking about where. So we'll talk about the alley, the box, the midline, the substitution area, the wing, the crease, all that stuff. And actually, we're not going to do that tonight. I'm going to have you guys watch one of these videos as sort of homework over the next week. I'll give you a couple of these very short videos and you can kind of watch them whenever you get a chance, and it'll answer all of these questions. So you have Team A and Team B. That is the important thing that you're going to talk about when we get to these issues. Now, I'm going to throw in a couple of new terms that we're probably not used to talking about. So you have the lead official and the trail official. The lead official is the guy who's down by the goal. The trail official is the guy who's kind of up at the midfield area, at the top of the box. You also have a face-off official and a wing official. Face-off official is the guy doing the face-off. The wing official is the guy, wait for it, on the wing.
Sometimes in high school.
What's up? Um, all right, so you also have the on-official and the off-official. The on-official is the guy who is looking directly at the play, right? He is the guy whose responsibility is the ball carrier. And the off-official has absolutely everybody else, okay? I don't care that I'm the referee and you're the umpire. I care whether you're lead or trail, on or off, face off or wing. And we are going to flip those responsibilities a billion times during the course of a game. So you're going to go from the lead to the trail, the lead to the trail, the lead to the trail, the lead to the trail. You're going to go being on to off to on to off to on to off. And you have to make sure that you understand what it is you're supposed to be looking at. That is probably the most important thing about officiating.
So Greg.
Yeah.
Quick question. What's the minimum amount of officials you can have?
So the minimum amount is 2, right? I have done games with 1. It is terrible. The recommended is 3. Okay. And when you get to the pro level, if you get to MLL, they actually have 4. And so, but you'll see some video and you'll kind of see what's going on. So, and we're going to do positioning is what we're essentially going to do tonight. We're going to talk about play on. That's a term we'll use during next week. We're going to talk about flag down, slow whistle, alternate possession, get it in, keep it in, stall and count. These are all terms that we'll get to as we go. Some key definitions: possession, shot, goal, out of bounds. These are key things that you need to understand, okay? Airborne player, alternate possession. The red ones are the ones we really need to know, and the one we really, really need to know is possession. So, carrying, cradling, passing, and shooting. Everybody say it with me now. Carrying, cradling, passing, and shooting. That is the definition of possession. And the reason possession is so important is because it determines what kind of penalty you might call. It determines what that player has a right to do. It determines whether or not he's out of bounds if he's got the ball. There's a zillion things that possession focuses on. You have to understand possession if you're going to officiate this game. So if he's not carrying, in this case, you can just have the ball in your cross. So this is my stick, ball comes out. I can just run down the field like this. That's carrying. I can cradle by doing this. The centrifugal force sort of keeps the ball in the stick, right? I can pass, or I could shoot. But if I'm doing any one of those things, I am in possession of the ball. If I have my stick laying over the top of the ball on the ground, that's not possession. If it's kind of bobbling in my stick, that's not possession, okay? It is the most important definition in the rule book. You have to understand possession in order to get through this, right? So let's watch. So here's a player driving to the goal. He is cradling, he is shooting. Right? That's a classic lacrosse move. You're going to see that play, and he either misses or he scores, or the goalie makes a save 43 bazillion times during a game. Okay? That's also the level of physical play you're going to see at the higher end. That was a totally legal play all the way around. There's nothing illegal about what you're seeing there. Here's another one. We're driving, we're shooting. It's literally it's basketball. Okay, now let me tell you a little secret. The guy that invented basketball was a lacrosse player. Naismith grew up as a Canadian playing lacrosse and hockey, so when he invented basketball, he made the offense look like lacrosse. Okay, it's all about matchups. It's all about trying to get separation to free your shooting hands to take a shot at the cage. Okay. Mhm. Now, to give you a sense of what's going on here, that is a solid Indian rubber ball, right? It is hard as hell. A shot can go from anywhere from 85 to 110 miles an hour. If it gets you, it's going to leave a mark, what we like to call the donut. You get the perfectly round, everything looks fine, and then everything else looks tie-dyed all the way around it and turns colors and freaks your wife out and thinks you're dying of, gangrene or something like that. But this is, this is a fast-moving sport. So this is the definition of a shot, right? A ball propelled towards the goal by an offensive player with the intent of scoring a goal. The only person who makes that decision is this guy, okay? It doesn't need to be a good shot. It doesn't need to be a shot that, doesn't get checked and sort of shoots off to the side. If in your opinion, the player was attempting to score, it is a shot. It only, though, has to be above goal line extended, and we'll talk about that in a sec. It can be thrown from across, kicked, or otherwise physically directed, right? This is what I mean by GLE. So this is the goal right here, the goal mouth. We're on the side of it. This is the crease, this rig round circle. And that round circle, no offensive player is allowed to go in. I talk about GLE. It's not actually a real line on the field. It means if we took the goal line that's inside this crease right here, inside these two pipes, and we extended it out to the sidelines, that is the place that the lead official likes to hang out. They should be right down there by the action. And so you can see if a player takes a shot from below GLE, there's literally no way he can score. So we do not consider that to be a shot. The ball needs to be released from above goal line extended. Now, a shot ends when the ball comes to rest. So it stops moving and it's on the field of play. Shot's over. When possession is gained, possession is carrying, cradling, passing, and shooting, right? So if I pick it up and I'm carrying it, possession, this is no longer a shot. If I'm kind of knocking the ball forward, we still have not gained possession. It's still a shot. The ball goes out of bounds. When the ball goes out of bounds, you stop play. A player causes it to go out of bounds. Forget that I ever told you that. I almost never use that rule ever, right? Unless you like tee up like you were trying to kick a 60-yard field goal and kick that ball out of bounds, 99% of the time, it kind of went out of bounds on its own, right? Because it was still a shot. Now, I tell you that this is important because if the ball goes out of bounds on its own, it's just like basketball. You give the ball to the other team. The team that touched it last loses the ball. You give it to the other team. Except on a shot. Whoever is closest to the ball when and where it goes out of bounds will retain or gain possession, right? So determining whether something is a shot enables you to figure out who you're going to award the ball to if the ball goes out of bounds. So again, you'll see players batting and trying to get possession, but they haven't really gotten it, right? Is there added impetus? Would the ball have gone out on its own? These are things you want to think about. We talked about a goal, right? So right there, there's our ball. A loose ball that completely passes through the front of the plane formed by the rear edge of the goal line, goalpost, and crossbar. How it got there is irrelevant. If a loose ball ends up on the other side of that plane, it's a goal, okay? It's got to be loose, and it's got to completely cross that. So the goal line is 2 inches wide. The pipe is, wait for it, 2 inches wide. So if it hits the pipe, it's hitting the line. If it hits the line, it's hitting the line, not a goal, right? Lacrosse is now similar to basketball. If you release the shot before the horn goes off, we're going to let it play out, okay? So that may be new for some of you who haven't coached or played in a while or coached in a while. The ball can hit the ground. It can deflect off the goalkeeper or defensive player and go in, and you're going to call it good. It cannot touch another offense. Once it's released and the horn sounds, you cannot hit another offensive player, right? And you see here I have A and B. Out of bounds, pretty similar to basketball. If you have possession of the ball and the player steps on the line out of bounds, ball's out of bounds, blow the whistle, you're giving it to the other team. A loose ball has to touch out of bounds or cross the plane. Now, if somebody throws a pass and it's errant and it goes off to the sideline, I am not going to wait for it to hit the Lexus in parking lot C 400 miles down the road before I blow the whistle, right? So use your best judgment. If it crosses the plane and it's loose, blow the whistle and award it to the team that did not touch it last, right? Unless it's a shot, in which case you will award it to the person closest to where it goes out of bounds when it goes out of bounds, right? Now, is this guy out of bounds? This is what I'm going to tell you. If you got to look, he's not. You either know he's out of bounds or he's in bounds, right? So if it's 100% clear to you, that's what we're going with. If you're like, I think, no official wants to hear the word, I thought he might, nope, right? So let's watch this. So this is a classic restart. The player 19 here in green is picking up the ball. He's going to step in bounds. The official's going to blow the whistle. And he is legally checked from the front and pushed out of bounds. You have a player in possession who steps out of bounds. You blow the whistle and you give the ball to white, right? That is a completely legal play that we just saw here. Airborne player. This is very similar in the football rules to whether or not you have to reestablish yourself if you go out of bounds, right? My rule is you are where you were. So if you were in bounds and you jump up in the air, the last place you touched was in bounds. So as far as I'm concerned, you are in bounds. If you are out of bounds and you jump up in the air, you are still out of bounds until you actually touch inbounds. Okay? And that is really important because an out of bounds player can't jump up in the air, catch a ball, and shoot or make a pass because he's out of bounds. You have to reestablish yourself completely in bounds once you've gone out of bounds. And then, like I said, shot out of bounds. On a shot, you're going to award the ball to the closest inbound player, where it went out of bounds, when it went out of bounds. And we are not going to count the stick. The stick is irrelevant. We are talking about the player's body. So can anybody tell me which of the three players here might be in bounds? Or might be closest to the ball?
Probably the goalie.
Not by much, though, right? Now, they're going to lay their sticks out. They're going to dive. They're going to do all that stuff.
But where's the ball?
The ball's on the end line. 90% of the time when you have a play like this, it's a shot, and the goalie and the opposing players all turn and run towards the end line because they want to be closest to where the ball goes out of bounds. It's really key to, again, understand that rule. You've got to understand what a shot is, and you've got to understand that you're not paying it. The goalie doesn't win this because his stick's in front. The goalie wins this because his hand is like 5 inches closer than the other guy's hand. Right? Cross is not part of the player. All right. Alternate possession is when you really screw up and you don't know who should get the ball. And we're just it's kind of like the jump ball arrow in basketball, except we do not use it very often at all. pretty much something really wackadoo has to happen for you to use it. But there's a handy little spot on your card, and you can mark it so that you always know who gets alternate possession. Right. All right, we are going to take a 5-minute break. Let's take a break, head out, go to the bathroom, shake it out, go scream outside that you never want to do this again, or listen to me drone on, whatever you need to do to get through it for a sec. And we'll come back here at 8:41, okay? So let's take a break, guys. All righty. Crossing equipment. So field player has got to have a helmet, right? It's got to meet the NOXI standard, right? This is how I know it meets the NOXI standard. The coaches told me that his players are all wearing the required equipment. I am not looking for stickers. I'm not getting my Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass out and trying to check any of this shit out. I am just looking at whether he's got a helmet on, okay? Got to have a mouthpiece, just like any other sport. It cannot be white or clear. You want to see something in the teeth, okay? You got to wear shoulder pads. You have to have a cross. You have to have arm pads. You got to have cleats. You got to have shorts. You got to have gloves, and you got to have a jersey, right? Home team always wears light jerseys, but that is going to change, I think, next year we'll wait and see. It actually has to be white. It's no longer going to be, oh, I can wear a light colored jersey. It's going to be, I have to wear a white jersey. And the home team wears dark. Okay. Yeah, 2022, the home team's going to have to wear a white jersey. These are questions that are going to come up on the rules, so make sure you understand them. You're not allowed to wear a football helmet. You're not allowed to wear football pads unless you're a goalie. Goalies get all sorts of weird stuff. You can't have electronic communication on the field. You can wear a chest protector. You can wear shin guards. This right over here is a goalie throat guard, so it has to be on the bottom of the goalie's helmet. You can be a field player and wear one of those. It is recommended that you wear a cup. It is required in youth. And then if you have a religious medal or a medical alert bracelet, that just has to be secured by tape to your person, right? So these are the prohibited equipment. You cannot have a hockey goalie glove. That would make it a lot easier. And again, the goalkeeper has to wear a chest protector. New this year is going to be that the goalie has to wear a NOXI chest protector, right? So that is a new requirement that came out last year, that starting in 2021, goalies are going to have to wear a certified chest protector. The reason the helmet and the chest protector are certified is because it's designed to deal with this ball and the speed at which that ball goes. There was a kid a couple of years ago who got hit right in the chest, and he had what's called commotio cordis. It basically hit right in between the beat of his heart, and he almost died of a heart attack. 17-year-old kid, perfectly healthy, but he just got hit in a weird way. So they want to make sure that the equipment is designed to protect you. Same thing with the helmet. There was a kid, 7 years ago who got hit in the head and ended up dying and being in a coma for a while. The dying is the worst part, but the reason that it was a problem was because the ball was not up to snuff. It was not a legal ball. And so the equipment wasn't designed to handle the heavier ball. So even though he was wearing a helmet, it didn't really offer a lot of protection. This is why we take this stuff seriously. So this is the chest protector, and actually all of the shoulder pads that kids are starting to wear now are going to have a little bit that drops down onto their chest in order to protect them. Just like this, right? So starting in January of 2022, this is going to be the new shoulder pad. So basically all those old shoulder pads are going out the window in January of 2022. The cross needs to be, it can be synthetic or it can be wood. You could still play with the cross on the right and you would be completely legally equipped. If it's got a hollow handle, it has to have a cap on it or a plug. Again, a short stick is 40 to 42. So one of these guys is a short stick, okay? A long pole is 52 to 72 inches. So these are vastly different in size. It's got to be relatively straight. It can't be more than 3.5 inches in circumference. The net can be gut, rawhide, linen, synthetic material, woven in a triangular shape, and it cannot ensnare. Key rule to remember, a broken cross is not a cross. If your stick breaks, you are no longer a legally equipped player. If you do not have a cross, you are no longer a legally equipped player. It doesn't matter if you meant to drop it or if it got knocked out of your hands. You're no longer legally equipped. These are the basic parts. You have the scoop up here. These are shooting strings. They're designed to help guide the ball as it releases out of the pocket. You've got the mesh, the sidewall, a ball stop down here, a little foam piece, not required. This we refer to as the neck, and this we refer to as the throat, okay? These are the little ball stops there. Again, they're not required, but you can only have one. You can't have multiple. You are not allowed to have shooting strings within outside 4 inches from the top of the cross. So we measure with the measuring tape from right here. This is clearly more than 4 inches. So this is a penalty. This is an illegal cross. Again, we are trying to make sure that the ball comes out when it is checked. Part of the reason the game got really violent in the late 80s, early 90s is this technology was making the cross narrower, which meant if you put a good defensive check on somebody, ball still wasn't coming out. So the only thing left to do is to just beat the snot out of them. And it got more violent and violent and violent. What we want is to reward good defensive play so that the ball pops out. Okay. All stick penalties this year are a 2-minute non-releasable, and the stick can come back in the game once it's fixed. These are the new wackadoo sticks. I think I've seen a couple of these come out and play, but even though it looks like it comes from a spaceship, that is totally legal. The pocket and net must be completely attached. So this is not legal over here, right? You can't have a gap large enough for the ball to pass through. And we're going to do some key measurements here, okay? We are going to measure here, here, and here, okay? These are all the minimum measurements. And again, we'll show you a video. We will do it during field training for the adults. I will tell you guys who are doing youth lacrosse and youth reffing, I've never done a stick check in a youth ref game in my entire life. Right? The kid's got a stick, it's fine. Goalkeeper, you can only have one goalkeeper on the field at a time. So you can't put like 19 guys out there wearing goalkeeper equipment. Their stick length is anywhere from 40 to 72. And it is 10 to 12 inches wide at the top here. The pocket can be very deep. And there are no shooting string restrictions on a goalie. I have never measured a goalie stick in my entire life. Do not check one ever. If it is a goalie stick, it's fine. Tape is allowed, but you can't have tape on a face-off cross up at the top. You have to be able to see contrasting colors. We'll talk about that later. You can have a thick ring of tape, but it can't be more than 3 inches from the bottom of the stick, or what we call the butt end, right? So one of these guys right there. They like it because it gives them a handle on it. Right, and you can put a string in there, and you'll see all sorts of crazy tape jobs, right? You have to have if you have an opening at the bottom, it's got to be covered by something that is manufactured for a cross. You cannot put a quarter or a bottle cap or anything like that in there, and you can't just have tape. That's what we call a get off and fix penalty. This is not a penalty where you're going to serve time. You just tell the kid, you can't use that stick, get off the field. Right? We're going to measure sticks. We're going to do 2 per team 2 times a game. So we're going to essentially do 4 stick checks. In college, you do 6 or more. You're going to check all the required equipment. Do we have shoulder? I'm just going to look at a kid. You got shoulder pads, you got a helmet, you got gloves, you got cleats. We're good. All right. All right. This has to be 10 inches, right, from the top to the throat. And then we're going to do a deep pocket. So we're going to check to see whether or not you can see the top of the ball under the plastic there. Okay. If you can see daylight, it's too deep. Again, that is a 2-minute non-releasable. All these used to be different penalties. All now illegal stick for measurement or deep pocket are 2-minute non-releasable penalties, right? You can see this is not going to pass the various 3.5, 3 inches stuff that we saw, right? So all penalties, 2. Coach can request a stick check. If it pans out that it's illegal, he keeps his free request. It's like a challenge flag in the NFL. If he does his free check and it's not illegal, it's fine. He can request another one, but if it's not illegal, he's going to be banged with a timeout. If he doesn't have a timeout, it's going to be a legal procedure. Okay. If your equipment breaks on the field, you've got to get off the field. You can pick your stick up and run off. I do not want shattered pieces of metal sitting around on my field. So if you pick it up and run off, that's fine. But if there's play going around there and there's unsafe conditions, just stop the play. Okay. A broken cross is not a cross. That's the key thing. Illegal equipment is a 1-minute non-releasable penalty. Not wearing a mouthpiece is a 30-second penalty. We'll talk about that a little bit later, right?
Hey, Greg, I have a question for you.
Yeah, what do you got?
So if the cross breaks and we're going to stop play, who do we award possession to?
So if the ball is loose, you go alternate possession, and it's outside of the crease. If the ball's loose inside the crease, you always give it to the goalie. If a team has possession, they keep possession, right? That's basically your basic rule whenever you stop play. Anytime you stop play, a team that has possession will retain possession for something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Right, illegal cross, illegal equipment, right? You're going to take the worst penalty, right? So you're not going to bang these guys for both issues here. And you're only allowed to have 4 of the big crosses in the game, right? So you're kind of constantly counting. So, number 1 rule of being a lacrosse official, beat the ball to the goal, right? You have to stay ahead of the play if you're the lead official, which means we need to run, okay? Beat the ball to the goal line, beat the ball to the end line, get to the sideline, stay 1 area ahead of the ball, and we'll show you some diagrams to help you. You want to keep a wide triangle because you're working with your partner. You're both dividing up the field so that you see what's happening. And the key thing is, if you're staring across the field and you're staring at your partner, one of you is in the wrong position, okay? Focus on your responsibilities. I tell old officials and new officials, if you focus on your keys, it will get you to where you need to be, okay? So here's our field. We have the midfield line. We have the defensive restraining lines, right? This is what we mean by the attack box, right? This is where the goal is. This is where the goal is. This is what we mean by the alleys, right? It's this little area between the defensive restraining line, the attack box, and the sideline. This is the bench side. So the bottom of your screen is the bench side. So you'd have 1 team over here and 1 team over here. The only place that you can substitute is through these cones, okay? And the reason we have this cone over here is so that you can see where the midfield line is, right, when you're looking across. There are basically 5 places you are going to be on a lacrosse field all the time. Top of the box, 5 yards in, 5 yards out. If you'll notice, I've got the football field underlined here. So the defensive restraining line is on the 30-yard line. So if you're like, oh God, where do I stop? Where do I stop? You want to essentially be right here, 5 yards in and 5 yards up. So right at the hash on the 35-yard line is where you're going to set up as the trail. The other official is going to be down at goal line extended. Now remember, goal line extended is not a real line. There's nothing painted here, but it is on the 10-yard line. That is where the goal is on a lacrosse field. So if you were on the 10, you're in the right spot. And you realize we have one official here. He's going to cover this sideline. And this official down here is going to cover this sideline, right? So you're on opposite ends of the field. One's up high, one's down low. Now, if the ball goes to the end line on a shot or there's a play there, the lead official is going to go there. So you may end up on the end line or on the sideline for that matter. But when I say get to the line, I mean be straddling the end line and looking down the end line. Straddle the sideline and look down the sideline so you can see how the play works itself out. Now, if the ball starts to go the other way, I'm going to tell the trail official that was right there to get to the cone. And I mean stand over the cone with it right up the old keister there, looking down the midline, okay? And this official right here is going to wait until the ball crosses, and he's 100% sure it's going to cross, and then they're going to release and go to their goal line extended. And our little, or the end line in case of a shot, and our little buddy back here, I don't really want you standing in the substitution area. There are bodies flying in and out. I have seen very large men run into other very large men, and it does not really work out. A buddy of mine broke his shoulder in the Michigan game a couple of years ago, and it was terrible. You want to be on what we call the wing line right here, right? And you're going to check and see what's going on, and then you're going to slide in top of the box. So here we are, 35-yard line on the hash marks. And so we've now set up. If you find yourself in some weird place on the field, you're either going to be at goal line extended, top of the box, you're going to be on an end line or a sideline, or you're going to be at the cone on the midline. Those are the only places you're supposed to be. Now, you can't necessarily run to these places in a straight line. You might have to bow out a little bit and avoid play, but these are the places you're going to go, okay? And this is because that's what the lead and the trail official do. The lead official is responsible for the goal line and the end line. The trail official is responsible for everything else. If the direction of play is going to the right of our screen, the lead official is going to move in and out depending upon where play is. If the ball moves away from him, you're going to go to the goal. You want to, literally foot in the crease, okay? Because if a play happens on the crease, you're the only guy that can make that call. You've got to be in position. You may go to your sideline to cover it, or you may get pushed out. If it goes to the end line, you're going to go right down to the end line. And as the play comes back, you're going to come back. So you are constantly moving as an official. Be dynamic. Do not sit in one spot and have grass die under your feet. As the trail, you're going to move to the sideline. If the play goes to the sideline, you're going to come back in. You may move to the midline, right? And if it goes the other direction, you're going to become the lead official, and the guy behind you is going to become the trail official. So you're constantly switching these responsibilities. You're going to go from lead to trail, trail to lead to trail, trail to lead, okay? Now, the lead official's key responsibilities, it's a one-man game until you get into position, till your buddy gets into position, right? So as the lead official, you are responsible for absolutely everything until your partner gets there. On a change of possession, you got to get to the cone and make a decision as to whether they're going to clear the ball. If you know they're going to clear the ball and are going to the goal, you go to the goal, right? You want to be ahead. When I say be ahead, I mean, if the ball is here, you should be in this zone. If the ball, if you're here and the ball's ahead of you, that's really bad, right? You want to be a zone ahead of the ball. We'll talk about counts later, but basically, as a team comes across their midline in possession of the ball, they have 10 seconds to step it into that box. And you're going to give a visual 10 count until they step it in. And when they step it in, You're going to give the signal that says, hey, the 10 counts over. We're all good. The lead has to run, right? The lead is never jogging. The lead is never walking. This is not baseball. Nobody walks, okay? Go Braves. The trail official is the guy kind of behind the play. The trail official is going to kind of remain even or slightly ahead of the ball, right? He has the 4 count. When the goalie gets the ball, the goalie has 4 seconds to get rid of it out of the crease. You're going to give a visual count. As soon as that ball gets out of the crease, you just drop your arm. On all of our counts, we are never verbalized. We're not going 1, 2. We're just doing it in our head. Okay, you give the signal and you do it in your head. The most important job of the trail official is to watch the shooter. Because the guy who is the lead official, he is watching the goal and the goalie and trying to see whether the ball goes in. He is not watching number 31 here get hammered. And if the trail official is ball watching, and pro tip, all of you are going to ball watch for the first couple of games because you're used to watching this game as a fan. You're not used to watching this game as an official. And it's 30 sometimes plus years of training where you're like, oh, the ball went that way. I'm going to watch that. And you don't see this kid get hammered, and you're literally the only person in the stadium that didn't see him get hammered. So the key thing I got to tell you is trail watches the shooter, trail watches the shooter, trail watches the shooter. Okay? It is their most important responsibility. Now, you have the goal behind you. You don't want to get too far ahead, because if the ball suddenly transitions the other way, you've now become the lead official. This is why as the trail, you never really go ahead of that 35-yard line. So let's watch the ball kind of spin around in this little video here. All right, so this guy's about to get the ball here. This is the trail official that you see highlighted. That is the lead official. He's down on goal line extended, right? So the ball is, we call this moving it around the horn, right? We're just passing it around, right? Kind of getting a sense for what the defense is doing. Do you see how the lead official is sort of creeping in a little bit? Now he's backing out, and we're going to get a dodge here. Shot. And the lead official goes to the end line to make sure he knows who was the person that was closest to where the ball went out of bounds when the ball went out of bounds, right? That was clearly a shot. You see both officials point. That is the ready signal. You're telling your partner, this is the direction of play, and I'm ready to officiate if you are. So, on official and off official. That's going to swap back and forth between lead and trail. And the way it works is we are going to divide the box like this. So the lead official has the alley behind him, and you are going to divide the box at a 45-degree angle. If that ball is within that little blue area, it is your responsibility as the lead. If the ball is not in that blue area, the trail is the on official and you become the off official. It is very important. If we have 6 guys playing 6 guys, I never count the goalie, right? We don't want 2 sets of eyes watching 2 players with, 10 other guys unaccounted for. We want to make sure that we're officiating the entire field. So as the ball moves around, now the trail becomes the on official and the lead becomes the off official. It's a little easier to see here. So trail is the lead, or trail is the on official, lead is the off official. He's got everybody else, right? Think about when you play defense, head on a swivel. If you're the off official, you're kind of scanning the field. you will get more experienced and realize kind of who you need to be paying attention to and where you need to be paying attention to. I always say, know who your troublemakers are. It's usually easy to figure out. If the kid who's leading the team in penalties for the last 3 years, he is probably going to lead the team in penalties in the next game that you do. They also usually announce themselves pretty early in a contest. But you want to pay attention to everybody. As the ball is passed, we switch responsibilities. It is important as a new official that you talk to yourself as you're doing this, right? I'm on, okay, I'm off. A good rule of thumb is if it's right on the line and you're not sure who you're supposed to pick up, if you are looking at the front of the player, you are the on official. If you are looking at the back of the player, you are the off official, right? Most fouls happen in the front, not in the back. Right? That's how close you should be as the lead on the goal, right? 3 steps and 3 big steps, and you are right in the crease and you can see what's going on. That's what we want to talk about, right? You may get pushed out. So here we've got a blue player and a green player. They're kind of in his way. He can't really see what's going on. One of the tricks that you'll see is you can slide underneath that guy. Don't feel like when I say you need to be on GLE that you have to be right on that line. If you're actually right on that line, you're just looking at the pipe. This is essentially all you're seeing. I like to be a little bit below. I think the goal gives me a little bit of protection. So if they shoot, then I like to be above. And I can actually look through the netting and see whether or not the ball has crossed the goal line extended. If the ball's behind the cage here, right, you may have to get the heck out of the way. You can back out kind of to this back cone over here, right? So see that again? You want to be aware of the passing lane. You know that this guy right here is going to pass it to his open buddy. So you got to get the heck out of the way, okay? And then kind of slide back up. As the ball gets passed here, what does the trail do? He slides back to that line. So there's constant movement. Again, it is really important that you be dynamic and you kind of anticipate where this goes. I will tell you this, it is a lot easier to officiate a good game than it is a not very skilled game, right? If you're doing Lassiter versus Walton, you know what he's going to pass it to him, and then he's going to pass it to him, and then he's going to pass it to him, right? When you're doing the Tiny Tots versus the Mighty Mites, Billy might panic and just throw the ball in any direction that he sees an open player or maybe a not open player. It's really hard to kind of react to that. So watch a lot of lacrosse games. You can see them on ESPN. You can get them on YouTube. I've got a ton of them on the GLOA YouTube channel. Just get a sense. If you've watched basketball, you understand the offense in lacrosse. It is not rocket science. Lead positioning. Look at what he's looking at. He can't see the goal. He can't see the goal line. He's looking through bodies, right? Slide down a little bit and give yourself an angle through the back of that crease in order to see what's going on, right? That's just a black hole right there, and it's really hard to see. So you need to start to get comfortable being in that position as the lead official. You are right up in the action, right? Now, I will say this. I've been run over and I've been hit, but it's not terrible, right? For the most part, it's happened once a season. The more you do it and the more comfortable you get, the better you're going to do a job officiating the game. So again, we've seen this clip before. Number 7 is going to come from behind, but look how that official is closing in, right? He knows this play is going to the goal. He does not want to stay really far out. Contact is from the front. Great play. Nice goal.
Greg.
Yeah.
Hey, are there advantages or disadvantages to being bench side versus crowd side?
So normally what you do is the referee is the bench side during the fourth quarter. The referee is usually the most experienced guy, right? and he's the one who can answer coaches' questions, right? But normally you switch each quarter, right? So, or you switch at the half. I will start at the bench side during the first half, and in the second half you'll be the far side. If I'm working with a rookie who doesn't know what he's doing, you're going to be far side the whole time. I'd rather have, Billy's mom yelling at you than the head coach yelling at you, or the head coach trying to ask you questions and getting you into trouble. I don't want any of that shenanigans right there. All right, here we go. So responsibilities on a shot. Remember, whoever is closest to the ball when and where it goes out of bounds is going to be awarded the ball. So here we have the red player up top, right at top center. He's got the ball being played by a blue defenseman. Now you'll note that there is this red player right down here on the end line. Offensive teams will put somebody behind the goal whose really sole purpose is to make sure that they're closest to the ball when it goes out of bounds if you miss on a shot. So it's important to realize what teams are trying to do. And so, right, we have a shot here. The trail, what does the trail do? The trail watches the shooter. The lead official realizes a shot has happened, so he needs to get really close to the goal to see whether or not the ball goes in the goal. So he crashes the crease. In this case, the goalie has made a save. But if you have this, the only person who's going to see that is the trail. The trail watches the shooter, the trail watches the shooter, the trail watches the shooter. Positioning is everything. Right? So the lead's the only one who can make a call at the crease, whether the goal is good, and the trail is focused on the shooter. I will tell you, you can be in the right spot and get it wrong, and nobody's going to say anything. But if you were in the wrong spot and get it right, everybody has a right to criticize you in the decision that you made. So be looking at the right thing and be in the right spot. The closer you are to the crease, the harder it is to argue with you as to whether it was a goal or not, or whether somebody had stepped in the crease, or whether there was contact with the goalie. If the brim of your hat is looking at the shooter when it happens, I'm going to believe you that you were looking at the shooter. But I will tell you this, Clyde and I watch a lot of game film of officials, and the brim of their hat is over here, and they're like, well, I was looking out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, yeah, that's not working for me, right? Be looking at what you're supposed to be looking at. Positioning really is everything. So let's talk a little bit about transition, right? Just like basketball, if you get a rebound, you're going to turn around and send the ball the other way. So in this case, direction of play is going right to left. We have a shot and a save, right? So now we're going to switch directions of play. The lead official and the trail official are going to swap responsibilities. So the lead becomes the trail, and he has now the 4-second count because the goalie now has possession of the ball in the crease. Possession is carrying, cradling, passing, and shooting. So you have a 4-second count. The old trail official becomes the new lead official, and he has got to make sure he gets to the cone. Right? And he is going to hold that line until he is 100% certain that the ball is going to be cleared. Right? And as the ball comes up, he realizes it's going to get cleared. So he beats the ball to goal line extended, and the trail official is just going to come up very slowly. He's going to check for secondary offsides. And he's going to kind of slide into his position. So here we are, goal line extended, top of the box, 5 yards in, 5 yards up. Right? Do we need to see that again, or are we good? We'll take a look at it again. So here we are. We make the save. Goalie's going to come in. He's got the 4-second count. We're going to switch responsibilities, and we are going to get to the cone as the new lead. And we're going to beat the ball to goal line extended. Meanwhile, the trail is going to work his way up and slowly slide into position. The lead runs, the trail jogs. Here is a perfect example of what not to do. That official is on the 30-yard line when he calls that a goal. He is 30 yards away from that. Now, I will tell you, I get it. These kids are fast and they are strong, and I am a pear-shaped 51-year-old man, right? You have to learn to anticipate. You've got to put in the hours in the gym of running, and all you young kids who are out there, right? So, all my high school kids who you think, oh man, I'm a high school kid. These like U10 kids will run you into the ground. And what does your coach tell you? The ball moves faster than a player. You will do a U11 game and these kids will be spinning that ball around like it's Johns Hopkins. And you're just running back and forth trying to keep up. So be in the right spot. Like, I don't know if that's a goal. I don't know if that went in. I don't know if it didn't go in. All I know is that nobody thinks that guy is right because he's 30 yards away from the play. So again, here's a classic example. The shot has missed, right? So you see that the goalie is turning, the defenders are turning, they're all trying to run back there. Our lead official is zeroed in on what's happening on the goal. He cannot see this play. If you're a college official and if you're the lead official and you throw a flag on that hit, they will downgrade you because you're not looking at what you're supposed to be looking at. So if you're a coach and you're like, how did you not see that? You're right there. It's because he's not looking at it. That's not his responsibility, right? Trail watches the shooter. End line responsibilities. You got a shot. Everybody's going to run to that end line. So get to the end line and be looking right down the line. That is the key thing about where you need to be, right? And the trail watches the shooter. And again, who gets it? The player that is closest to the ball when and where it goes out of bounds, and the stick doesn't count. Okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the 9:30 hour. I am going to send you a couple of videos that you can watch over the next couple of days that will go over some other concepts, and we will have time on our next class on Tuesday to sort of catch up on those. But I'm trying not to overwhelm you with like a bazillion things. These presentations on positioning are all available on YouTube. I will make sure this recording is available as well and send you a link to that. I know that this is a lot. I know that if you're a football guy or a basketball guy, this can be a bit overwhelming. I will make sure I send you some game film so you can just see a game being played and get a sense for what it kind of looks like. I will tell you this, if you know how to officiate, you know how to officiate. You understand positioning and keys and all those things. You've just got to figure out what we're talking about. A lot of us who are doing this, like I played growing up, but there are a lot of really damn good officials in this game that have never played lacrosse. And they are just truly spectacular officials. That's what we need you to be. We need you to know how to study a rule book. For those of you who played the game, you still got a long way to go. There's a lot of stuff we're going to throw at you. And it's a lot of habits of being a player and a fan that are hard to unpack. So just be aware of that as you move forward. Everybody's got their own challenges and everybody's got their own advantages. And we just need to play on those. You've got a group of people who are really willing to answer your questions and help you through this process. So please make use of us as resources. Text me, call me if you've got questions or problems, and we'll make sure we get you sorted out. All right. Anybody got anything that they need from me right away? All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your evening. I will see you next Tuesday, and look for an email from me tomorrow with a couple of videos that I'd like you to watch over the course of the week. And then again, like I said, you can go jump on the YouTube channel and watch all of this stuff if you want to sort of see it a couple of times before we do it on Tuesday. Tuesday, we are going to go over penalties, goals, and face-offs. All right. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.